For almost everyone, the benefits of physical activity far outweigh any risks. For some individuals, specific advice from a qualified exercise professional or healthcare provider is advisable. If you have any concerns about becoming physically active, please refer to the Get Active questionnaire. The Spinal Cord Injury Physical Activity Guidelines suggest to build up to a minimum of 2 strength training sessions per week, including 3 sets of 8 to 10 repetitions for all major muscle groups. The resistance you use should be difficult enough that you can barely, but safely, perform 8 to 10 repetitions. Between each set, it is recommended that we take 1 to 2 minutes rest. For more information, please refer to the Physical Activity Guidelines for adults with spinal cord injury. For this workout, if dumbbells are not available, we could also use ankle weights or household items like water bottles and cans. If you have reduced hand function, active hands will allow you to maximize your workout without being held back from lifting heavier weights due to reduced grip strength. Hook grips are an alternative to active hands that work in a fairly similar way. The only difference is they need to be adjusted depending on what direction we are pulling the band or weight in. A Velcro waist strap can be used with anyone that has compromised core strength to help prevent falls and improve exercise technique. For many of the exercises, you'll notice a pillow can be used behind the back or on top of the knees to help with core stabilization as well. A leg strap can be used on top of these to help with comfort and stabilization of the lower extremities. Lastly, before we start our workout today, make sure you have checked out our videos on proper warm-up technique. For shoulder press, we want to start out sitting up nice and tall. Hand is directly above the elbow, sitting right on top of the shoulder. We want the hands with palms facing inward, so we have a neutral grip. We're going to raise the dumbbell directly above our heads in a straight line with the body, and lower it smooth and controlled by dropping the elbow. We can work our cores a little harder by taking the opposite hand and putting it over the chest, or you can be more balanced by holding onto the wheel. For our two-handed shoulder press, we're going to be using the exact same technique. Just remember, if you're struggling with balance, that we can resort to the one-handed shoulder press while holding onto the wheel. For rows, we want to lean forward while keeping the back and head in a straight line. We're going to bring the weight up by bringing your elbow up as high as possible, squeezing the shoulder blades together, and then bringing it back down in a smooth, controlled movement. Notice from the front view here, we don't want any turning at the core, so everything remains nice and straight. If you're struggling with your core stabilization and you find yourself turning there, we can also use the opposite hand and put your forearm across your knees to keep yourself more balanced and stable. For two-handed rows, we're going to use the exact same technique. Only difference is we might need to move up a little bit further in the chair just to clear room for both the dumbbells. Also, make sure you're comfortable in this position balance-wise, because it will be a lot more difficult on your core not holding onto the wheel. If you're not as comfortable balance-wise and you're a little bit worried about falling over, you can also take a pillow and put it across your knees to stop yourself from falling forward. For one-handed incline chest press, we're going to start by sliding forward in the chair, leaning back so we're on about a 45-degree angle. This is one of our least stable exercises, so if you don't feel safe in this position, do not feel the need to do it. We have other chest exercises we will go through afterwards. The weight will be directly above our shoulders, slightly to the outside, hand above the elbow. We're going to raise the weight straight up and lower it by dropping the elbow in a smooth, controlled movement. For two-handed incline chest press, we're going to be using the exact same technique. Only thing here again is we're not holding on to the wheel on the opposite side. so make sure you feel safe in this position before starting the exercise. For our side-to-side exercise, we want to start with our bodies completely straight from head to waist. We will then lean as far to the side as we are comfortable and return back to the starting point. Some people like to do one side after the other, which is fine, just make sure you're taking a quick pause in the middle between each repetition. For safety purposes, if you are worried about going too far and falling over, we can keep the hand on the opposite side that we are leaning towards over the tire, so we can grab onto the tire and pull ourselves back if we've gone too far. To make this exercise more difficult, we can either go further or add a dumbbell towards the side we are leaning to. On the other side, if you find this exercise too difficult, we can lean less to the side or use a weight on the opposite side that we are leaning to create a counterbalance. For our crunches, we're going to start with our hands across our chest and our backs nice and straight. We're going to tuck our chins to help activate the abdominal muscles a little bit more. When performing this exercise, understand that the further we move our hips forward to start, the harder the exercise will be. If we want to make this exercise more difficult, we can raise our hands above our head instead of keeping them across our chest. If you're finding that exercise too difficult, we can use our hands as momentum to bring ourselves forward. Again, we want to make sure we're using proper technique so the back stays straight, the head stays down, and the chin is tucked in. If this movement is still too difficult for you, we can use a weight in our hands while performing the same movement to give ourselves more of a counterbalance and make the exercise a little bit easier. For our back extensions, we're going to be doing the opposite movement of the crunches. Again, maintaining a straight back with the chin tucked into the chest. We're going to go as far forward as we can and then pull ourselves back up using the lower back muscles. In this clip, I have my hands across my chest, but if you're worried about falling forward, we can either use a pillow across our knees to limit the movement, or keep our hands on our knees so we can use our arms to push ourselves back up. Just remember this is a lower back exercise, so if we do need to use our arms, we want to use them the least amount possible. If this exercise is getting too easy, we can add dumbbells or weights. Make sure your hips are far forward enough that the weights you are pulling up won't be hitting the chair or the tires. It's also important to keep your shoulders back to maintain a good posture. Another way of making this exercise more difficult without adding weight is to keep our arms above our head throughout the movement. Just make sure you aren't swinging your arms up and using them as momentum. For the tricep extensions, we're going to lean forward while maintaining a straight back and keeping our elbow tight to the torso. We're going to lift the weight up by straightening at the elbow, holding for a second, and bringing the weight back down slow and controlled. If you are worried about falling forward during this exercise, we can use a pillow on our knees for safety purposes. For bicep curls, we're going to start out sitting up nice and tall. Notice I've slightly leaned over to the side on which I'm doing the curl, just to clear room from the tire. Elbow is going to be tight to our torso the entire time. Shoulder doesn't move. We're going to bring the hand up in a scooping motion, so the palm is facing the ceiling at the end. Squeeze for a second, and then come back down in a smooth, controlled movement. For one-handed lateral raises, we're going to start out sitting up nice and tall. Dumbbell is directly to our side. Arm is in line with the body. We're going to raise the dumbbell so it's about 90 degrees or shoulder height. Pause for a quick second and come down in a smooth, controlled movement. If you're a little worried about core stabilization, we can maintain our balance by holding onto the tire on the opposite side. If you're comfortable with your core strength and not worried about balance, we can take the opposite hand off the tire, put it across our chest, and then we'll be working the core throughout this entire movement. For this exercise, we can also do both hands at the same time. Just understand the weights will be counterbalancing each other, so it won't be as much of a core workout. For the chest squeeze press, we want to start by sitting up tall with our hands and weights at chest height and our elbows right by our sides. We're going to extend our arms until they are straight while squeezing the weights together throughout the entire exercise. If you find this exercise is too difficult on your core, we can lean back in the chair to make it more focused on the chest. For reverse flies, we're going to start leaned forward while maintaining good posture with back straight and shoulders back. We're going to lift the weights up with our hands and elbows while squeezing the shoulder blades together. And just think about at the top, creating a T formation, pausing for a second, and then slowly bringing the weights back down. If you're uncomfortable or unsure about doing both arms at the same time, we can also do this exercise one side at a time, using the opposite hand to hold onto the tire for balance. If you're worried about balance, we can also keep a pillow on our knees or use the opposite forearm across our knees to keep ourselves from falling forward.
For our core twist, we're going to start with our arms straight, hands locked together, shoulder height. We're going to twist this side as far as we can, hold for a second, and come back towards the middle. If you find it's too difficult to keep your arms straight out, we can do it with our hands on our lap or with our elbows bent.
To make this exercise more difficult, we can add a weight. Just make sure it isn't compromising your form or technique. For flies, we're going to start with our body on a 45-degree angle, leaned back. If you don't feel safe in this position, do not do this exercise. We're going to have one hand directly above the shoulder, slightly bent at the elbow, and we're going to bring the hand down nice and slow until it is just below shoulder height. Bring it back up so it's directly over our head, and repeat this in a slow, controlled movement. The opposite hand is holding on to the tire to maintain balance throughout the core. If you feel safe and balanced in this position, we can also perform this exercise doing both arms at the same time. For frontal raises, we're going to start up sitting up nice and tall with our shoulders back. Arm is directly in line with the body. We're going to raise the weight so it's about 90 degrees or shoulder height. Pause for a quick second and bring it back down in a smooth, controlled movement. If you want to get more of a core workout, again, we can take the hand off the tire and put it across the chest. For our ytwl exercise, you'll notice that I did them in a leaned over position. If you don't feel very safe and comfortable in that position, you can also do this exercise sitting upright or put a pillow on your lap for safety purposes. To start this exercise, we want to be leaned forward with a straight back, arms directly in front of us with our thumbs pointed upwards. We're going to open up by forming a Y with our arms, squeezing our shoulder blades together at the top, holding for a second, and coming down smooth and controlled.
For our L movement, our backs are going to be in the same position, but we're going to bend our arms so our elbows are at 90 degrees. We're going to lift our elbows and our hands back as far as possible. Hold for a second, squeezing the shoulder blades, and coming back in a smooth, controlled movement. The W movement is going to be very similar to the L movement. The only difference is we're going to drop the elbows down. Lastly, for our T movement, we're going to start out arms straight, 90 degrees, palms together, and bring the back of our hands as far back as possible, forming a T. Again, squeezing the shoulder blades together and coming back in a smooth, controlled movement.